All right, welcome to our second Leadershop on accreditation. How many of you were in the first Leadershop? Almost all of you. That's awesome. Do you remember what, this is a test, a review. Do you remember what we talked about in that first Leadershop?
Connecting the dots.
Connecting the dots, exactly. And what did that have to do with?
We had dots that we would go around and put ways that our department facilitated things that we have in our accreditation program.
Exactly. How what you do in your different areas relates to the accreditation criteria. And criteria of our mission, vision, of integrity, of teaching and learning. Those are some of the criteria. Well, today we're going to talk about, well, the title of our Leadership is Every Piece is Important. And we're going to explain how what you do is related to making sure our college stays successful, stays or is able to continue to reach for that vision of being the premier resource for higher education in Eastern Arizona. That's our vision. And it's completely doable if we're not already. It's not the premier institution everywhere, but in Eastern Arizona, we want to be the resource that students look to get their education. And we want to do it in a quality way. And that's our vision. And our Leadership today is on how what you do relates to doing that. And the whole principle is that it's related to continuous improvement. We are a continuous improvement institution. Go to the next slide. The inspiration for this Leadership and the Leadership we did before, again, came from the Higher Learning Commission that we attended the Higher Learning Commission annual conference we attended last year. And again, this is to figure out how we can continue to be successful. This was a quote that was in that session that we attended. Can you all see that? I'm just standing right in front of it. Okay, that's all I'm going to tell you. To begin, I talked way too much last time, took up too much time. This is the agenda. Shannon will explain our continuous improvement processes and our structure. Many of you probably know already if you're involved in the President's Quality Council or other things, but some of you may not even be aware what our structure is for continuous improvement. That's one of the main purposes of this Leadership today. And then she will also go on to she and I together will talk about our planning processes. And then we have another activity for you, and hopefully you'll figure out what you've learned today in that activity. I just want to tell you that we decided that we would put handouts and anything we wanted you to make sure and take with you in front of you at your places today so that you wouldn't go off and leave it. We had way too many refreshments or dot handouts or goodies left last time. So we want you to have those right in front of you now so that you can either enjoy them or whatever you want to do with them, but we're going to be referring to some of them as we go along. So I'm going to turn the time over to Shannon.
Okay, so as Provost Bryce mentioned, I'm going to start out talking about EAC's continuous improvement process and our continuous improvement structure. It's important to note that continuous improvement goes hand in hand with our accreditation process. And this is why it kind of leads into our accreditation leaderships. EAC has incorporated continuous improvement as part of our accreditation since 2003. So we've done this for well over a decade. Continuous improvement, as we transitioned from the AQUIP model for continuous or for accreditation over to Open Pathway, our continuous improvement focus changed a little bit. And with that, we also changed our continuous improvement structure. We created this formal structure that we're going to talk about today. One of the reasons that we're going to do this is that we're up for our reaffirmation of accreditation coming in February, and we want all of you to be comfortable in talking about continuous improvement and how it works here at EAC. And we also want to encourage all employees to get involved in continuous improvement. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but I want to give you a background on why we're talking about continuous improvement today. So first we're going to talk about EAC's continuous improvement process. I'm not going to go into detail on this because this was actually one of our first leadershops that we ever gave, and it was an hour-long session. So I'm not going to, take up this entire leadership talking about our continuous improvement process, but if any of you are interested and did not attend that leadership, please contact me and let me know. If there's enough interest, we will give another leadership on this, or I can just sit with you and kind of take you through the details of the process. But what this is it's a marrying between two very common continuous improvement processes that are used out in industry and higher education. It was developed by President Bryce, and again, it's sort of a marriage between these two main processes for continuous improvement. The first is Plan, Do, Check, Act, which is most commonly used in higher education, and it's also what is used by the Higher Learning Commission and what is encouraged by the Higher Learning Commission. So President Bryce sort of reorganized this Plan, Do, Check, Act, and then we brought in some components of Six Sigma. Six Sigma is most commonly used in industry, and it's actually where I received my training. So we created this continuous improvement process, which is Analyze, Innovate, Plan, Act. And so for the sake of today, I'm just going to kind of take you through high level what each of these main processes are. So the first is Analyze, and under Analyze, you would sort of get a good feel for how the process currently works. You would generally create a process map, which is a visual representation of the steps in a process. It also takes into account the inputs of the process and the outputs of the process, and all the stakeholders that touch that particular process. You also, in this Analyze step, you start to look at the measures of effectiveness, which is essentially some sort of a data point or data points that show you how effective the process is. So by using these tools, you then get a good understanding of the status quo. And from there, you can define specific process improvement goals. So maybe you can identify that the process takes too long. Maybe there's bottlenecks in the process. Maybe there's a communication gap in the process. And those would be the high-level improvement targets that you would identify under this Analyze process. Next, you would move over to Innovate, which is where you would use the process improvement tools, most of which come from Six Sigma, to identify innovative ways to tackle those improvement goals that you identified in Analyze. From there, you would start to select your critical improvements. This sort of goes back to that Pareto principle where 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes, which essentially means that you can tackle 20% of those process improvement targets and then end up with an 80% effect on improvement. So that's what you would do under that last step of Innovate. Then you would head over to Plan, where you would pilot the improvements on a small scale to ensure that the improvements that you are planning to make are actually resulting in true improvement that you have expected. And then you would head over to Act, where you would plan and lead the full-scale improvement. Generally, this includes training, communication with stakeholders, and that sort of thing. And then the final step is the sustaining of gains, and this is the piece that links back into that continuous improvement model, where you set some sort of a trigger in the process to identify if at any point it stops working. And from there, if you have a point where the process stops being as effective as you had hoped, then you would repeat this process of AIPA. So that is EAC's formal continuous improvement process. Anytime we have an action project that is new to EAC, we include these slides from the original leadership, and I kind of walk through the process so the leaders will know the standard process that we have here at EAC for continuous improvement. Any questions on that? Okay, so now we're going to head over to EAC's formal continuous improvement structure. And this is how EAC manages continuous improvement here at the college. This, as I had mentioned, is new to EAC. We developed it as part of our quality initiative, which is the required improvement project under our current accreditation model that is Open Pathway. So we have to have this major institution-wide quality initiative, and our quality initiative is developing a self-governing quality culture, which is essentially bridging the gap between AQUIP, where we had the Higher Learning Commission sort of governing our continuous improvement, over to Open Pathway, where we were left to be responsible for our continuous improvement. So this quality initiative, creating this self-governing quality culture, is bridging that gap to ensure that EAC has the processes in place to ensure that we have a strong continuous improvement process now and going forward. And this is the structure that we have developed. It has been in place since 2012-2013 academic year, and it is working really well. We have a lot of strong data to suggest that it is working very well for EAC. So I'm going to go into each of these bubbles in detail, but first I think it's important to look at the entire structure as a whole, just sort of looking at the big picture of how it all relates. You'll see up at the top we have the President's Quality Council, and this is the main oversight body of continuous improvement here at EAC. You'll see that we have two additional pieces that feed into the President's Quality Council. We have the Continuous Improvement Review Committee, which is essentially a subcommittee with additional members that reviews institution-wide data and surveys to find areas of improvement. We also utilize stakeholder input to drive continuous improvement, and that stakeholder input either goes to the Continuous Improvement Review Committee or it goes directly to the President's Quality Council. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But you'll see up at the center we have continuous improvement at EAC, and that really is our long-term plan of creating this quality culture, if you will. And that quality culture is trying to continually communicate to employees what we are working on, what we are planning for the future, and then also trying to get employees to get involved in the process. Our continuous improvement process is only going to be as strong as the number of employees that we have involved. We know that employees who are working day to day with the processes have the best idea of what is working well and what isn't. So we need that feedback from our employees and our other stakeholders to identify our improvement projects. So this continuous improvement at EAC, it starts with information sharing. We primarily do that through the communicator. We have an article that is included in the communicator, and it has all of the current information that we are working on. We also have a couple different pieces in the knowledge base system and also in the Hive. Most of that is replicated in the Hive. And we have an external website where we provide all of our information on both accreditation and continuous improvement to our external stakeholders. So if you're ever interested in seeing what others can see, you can just go out to our website, which is Accreditation and Continuous Improvement, and you'll see up at the top we have details on our accreditation and details on our continuous improvement process. So we are very, we have worked very hard over the last couple of years to try to be more transparent with regards to continuous improvement. The final piece is Leadershops. Leadershops is actually another piece of our quality initiative, and by using Leadershops, we can expand our professional development activities and bring workshops such as this to employees to expand on our communication sharing, information sharing, and try to get you all involved in continuous improvement. Okay, so we're going to focus on the first bubble up at the top, and this is the President's Quality Council. So as I mentioned, the President's Quality Council is EAC's main oversight body of continuous improvement. It is a cross-functional team. We had tried to get every employee group, representation from most departments in the President's Quality Council while still keeping it to a size that's manageable. Right now we are at about 19 members, which include the action project leaders. They actually sit on the President's Quality Council for the duration of their action project, so they can see what other moving parts are going on within the college. It's very helpful to their projects. Just looking at the membership of the President's Quality Council, we have President Bryce and Executive Vice President McEwen. They are our ex officio members, which essentially means that they receive our agenda, our minutes, and they are always welcome to attend the meetings. But the President's Quality Council is led by Provost Bryce and myself, so we generally lead the meetings every month. They're the fourth Thursday of each month, with exception to summer months. We also have academic deans, we have faculty, we have PSS, OSS representation, and even more so than in the past, we have brought in a lot of our business side of the college. Historically, most of our continuous improvement and accreditation activities were primarily done on the academic side. So as we created this new structure, we brought in a lot of the business side into our process, which has proven very valuable because that's a very important piece of the college. So some of the responsibilities of the President's Quality Council include reviewing action project ideas for implementation. They utilize different pieces of information to look at concerns of employees and other stakeholders, and then from there a discussion is held, and if it is determined to be an action project or a smaller quick fix, we then set a priority for those action projects. The priority helps us to identify how quickly we are going to declare these action projects. And then from there, we work on declaring the action projects. And that essentially means that we create an overall set of goals for the project. We also identify who would be the best leader for that project, and then give some very broad recommendations as to who would be best to serve on that action project. And by that I mean, maybe they need a computer services representative or somebody from financial aid to sit on that project. And it just sort of goes into the particulars of that project and who would be best, to have that representation. So from there, we send the action project leader the ideas that we have, and they form their action project team. Generally, they look at a list of employees that are interested in serving on action projects, and then they bring in the recommendations from the President's Quality Council and form this team. Then the team and the action project leader work on creating this formal declaration, which includes all of the details on the project, including very specific goals, a time frame that they expect to complete the project under, and different departments and functions at the college that they would end up impacting through the action project. Once the President's Quality Council approves this declaration, from there the President's Quality Council monitors the progress of the action project every month. Every month we get an update from each of the action project teams. And the final piece of this is selecting the quality initiative for our open pathway model of accreditation. We put this responsibility in there because it really should be done by the President's Quality Council. We want employees to identify what major initiative we should be tackling under our open pathway model for accreditation. It was not feasible this time because the President's Quality Council was actually created under our quality initiative, but going forward in the next 6 years, we want to make note and make sure that it's a responsibility of our President's Quality Council to select that quality initiative. Any questions up until this point? Okay. So the next bubble under the President's Quality Council is the Continuous Improvement Review Committee. It's also known as the CIRC Committee, and it's led by Dean Lawhorn. She actually sits on the President's Quality Council and acts as a liaison between the CIRC Committee and the President's Quality Council. This team is, again, a cross-functional team. It's in addition to the President's Quality Council. We have very broad representation, again, on that CIRC Committee. And this committee reviews institutional surveys and data to identify common trends in terms of areas of improvement. So historically, institutional surveys were done by a handful of different departments. We had the institutional research department that did a lot of institutional surveys. Myself, I also conducted some of the surveys. Then we had counseling did a survey, and also human resources. And these surveys were reviewed in detail. However, there was no one standing committee or person that reviewed all of them together to see if our stakeholders were sort of voicing the same concerns. And that is the purpose of this CERT committee. They review all data, and they now have the ability to send up recommendations to the President's Quality Council and say, you know what, we're seeing this over and over again. This is something we need to act on. And this committee has proven to be very valuable to our continuous improvement process. So generally, they send up these recommendations to the President's Quality Council, and the President's Quality Council goes through the same process that I just went through in prioritizing and declaring those action projects. The final piece is stakeholder input, and the stakeholder input either goes to the CERT committee or it goes directly up to the President's Quality Council. The President's Quality Council reviews one major survey in detail. This is the Continuous Improvement Survey, which is sent out every 1 to 2 years. It is also one of the 4 goals of our quality initiative, and it's used to measure our quality culture to see how involved employees are in continuous improvement. And it also solicits feedback from employees on action project ideas and leadership ideas. So the President's Quality Council uses this data to understand how well the President's Quality Council and myself are doing at expanding that quality culture here at EAC. And it also uses the details of the data to declare action projects and set our leadership schedule for the next year. So we have declared, I would say, at least 4 or 5 action projects based off of the last couple years of data from the Continuous Improvement Survey. So it's very valuable to EAC, and we appreciate employees taking the time to complete that survey. The President's Quality Council also hears continuous improvement ideas from all of the standing committees. Every month I reach out to every standing committee, everyone that you can think of, including PSS, OSS, and ask them if there's any improvement ideas that are coming from their committee. Then if there are any ideas that come forward, I send them directly to the President's Quality Council, and they are reviewed that month and prioritized. So that is another way that we listen to our employees for feedback on continuous improvement. And finally, we have an external stakeholder input survey that is out on our public website under the Continuous Improvement and Accreditation website, where any stakeholder, it could be employees, students, our community, can go and provide a recommendation on an action project. And this is totally anonymous. It goes directly to me. It's just a 1-question survey where you just type in the improvement idea that you have, and if any improvements come to my desk, then I send them directly to the President's Quality Council for review.
Shannon, do those go to you anonymously?
They do.
So you have no idea who?
I don't, no. It's just a 1-question survey, so it doesn't ask for any personal
Have you ever
information.
received very many?
I've received 1, and this has been up for years. So it's just trying to make sure that people know that it's out there. So.
Shannon, I have one more question.
Okay.
I know because we just went through this recently. One of their questions was not just how do stakeholders have input, but how do we give information to stakeholders? So I noticed your arrows just go that way and they don't go the other way.
And that, we primarily do it through our website, but it's trying to, I think that with some surveys we end up sending information back to the individuals that we are surveying, but in some instances that's very challenging,
Well, we did a better job of the other way, giving information and getting it, so I think this is probably good.
Well, maybe we need to talk, and through the two of us we can work that out. Okay, so the final piece is how stakeholder input is reviewed by the CERT committee and then brought to the President's Quality Council. And this includes all institutional surveys. So this includes surveys that are conducted through my office, surveys that are conducted through institutional research, our PACE survey that's done by our Human Resources Office, and also our CAP survey, or the Graduate Outcome Assessment Survey, that is done through the Counseling Office. So now all of those go to this one area where they're reviewed in detail. It also includes summary data from our program portfolios. And we'll talk about program portfolios when we get to the planning piece of our leadership. But our program portfolios is our main tool for analyzing the performance of each of our programs, both academic and academic support programs, and also driving continuous improvement at the program level. So this, the summary level data is reviewed by the CERT committee, and improvement ideas are sent up to the President's Quality Council. And finally, data is reviewed on an as-needed basis. If the Institutional Research Office feels that there's data that the CERT committee needs to review, then they will send it over to the CERT committee for review. So it's sort of this all-inclusive, very broad review by this CERT committee that has proven to be really very valuable and is new to EAC. Okay, so now we're going to talk about how you all can get involved, because that's something we really want to stress, is that if you aren't already involved in continuous improvement, we want you to find a way to get involved, even if it's something that's very small. So I'm just going to go through all the different ways that you can kind of fit into this puzzle here of continuous improvement. The first is complete the continuous improvement survey. This is the one that goes out every 1 to 2 years and includes feedback, or where we solicit ideas on action projects and leaderships. So if you don't, if you can just take a few minutes to complete that survey, it is very valuable to EAC and our continuous improvement process. Also, complete other employee surveys that are going out. Those include the PACE survey, which was administered last fall, so it'll be another 2 to 3 years before that one's administered, and also our stakeholder survey, which is a very broad survey that we give out to all of our stakeholders, including the community, and that's scheduled to go out in 2017. You can also complete the survey that's out on the website, our external survey. You can talk to your standing committee chair. As I had mentioned, those ideas go directly to the President's Quality Council every month. So if you have an idea, you can talk to your chair and those ideas will be heard. You can also talk to your division chair or your director for inclusion of any major improvement ideas into the program portfolio. That is one of our main tools for continuous improvement here at EAC. So that's another way to get involved. Or you can contact me directly. I have had individuals over the years that come and talk to me directly in my office or give me a call, send me an email, and I'm happy to voice your concerns either through you or anonymously. So that's another way that you can get involved in continuous improvement. And one thing I failed to mention is that as part of the continuous improvement survey, we ask employees if they are willing to serve on an action project. And I think that there's a little bit concern that then your name will be tied to your response, and that's actually not the case. It just presents me with a list of employees that have, agreed to participate in action projects, and that list is used throughout the year to select members for action project teams. So if you are involved, or if you are interested in getting involved, please voice your name on that continuous improvement survey. And if you still feel uncomfortable, just shoot me an email and let me know that you are interested, and we can get you involved in the action project teams. Okay, any questions on continuous improvement before we move over to the planning side? Okay. So I'm just going to take you through the high-level planning process, and then Provost Bryce is going to take you into each of these individually. But what we want to talk about today and stress is the connection between our planning processes. This is something that is new to EAC. We have always had each of these planning processes, with exception to the strategic plan. But we have recently changed the way these processes talk to one another. It is a requirement of the Higher Learning Commission that we have these very integrated planning processes. And so we have worked hard over the last couple of years to integrate these. And we want everyone to be knowledgeable about how they talk to one another, and also be knowledgeable about each of the pieces of our planning processes. So up at the top, you will see our mission statement. Our mission statement is out on the website. If you don't know what our current mission statement is, go out and visit it on the website. And it is our very overarching piece of our planning process. It is meant to support all of the sub-processes in our overall institution-wide planning. You can see that it touches each of the individual pieces of our planning process. So the mission statement feeds directly to our strategic plan. Our strategic plan outlines the major initiatives that EAC has in place, which is helping us to continue to fulfill our vision of being the premier resource of higher education. And the strategic plan, if you haven't already reviewed the strategic plan, we actually have a copy out in front of you. I don't think it's going to be anything new to any of you. I think you probably will know that these are sort of the goals of EAC, but it's interesting to review them and just to know the direction that EAC is headed in terms of our strategic initiatives. And the strategic plan is meant to support or guide both the program portfolio process and the budget process. So we really shouldn't be, having any major projects that don't support our strategic plan or our mission. Obviously, there are going to be some external factors that come into play in planning, which I've outlined here. We have funding levels changes that may impact a piece of our planning process. We also have the economy. We know that as the economy goes down, we have a higher enrollment and vice versa. So that ends up impacting our planning process. There's also technological changes that occur that may require additional funding or additional strategic initiatives through the program portfolios that aren't identified in the strategic plan. And also expectations. So expectations of our students, maybe expectations of the federal government, of our accrediting body. There's certainly expectations that are placed upon EAC, and we have to go ahead and make those changes that aren't directly outlined in any of these planning processes. So I've also noted with the 2 stars there, any piece of the process that touches on continuous improvement, because we want to show that continuous improvement really is a huge piece of EAC. It's actually mentioned on our mission statement as one of our purposes. So it's very important to EAC, and we want to stress that to each of you. So now I'm going to hand it over to Provost Bryce, and she's going to talk about each of these in detail.
Okay, this is our mission and strategic plan. This is our mission statement. We call this our mission statement, mission and vision statement. It hasn't changed for a number of years. In fact, you have a strategic plan in front of you, and so I'm not going to go to that link there. You can look at that. But if you'll look at I didn't bring mine up with me, in your strategic plan book, we call this is our 5-year strategic plan. The first page, of course, is our college mission, vision, purposes, and so on. Just like it is here on this slide. It hasn't changed, but we do have a process in place for how we will review this mission statement. Now, it's something that we didn't have, like Shannon said. We've worked on this really hard. That's where I'm going to go right now, is to the policy. We've developed a policy on how on our planning processes. This was approved just last year, a little over a year ago, in 8 of 2014. So it's a new process. I worked very hard on it. Shannon and I passed everything by Shannon, passed everything by the Planning and Steering Committee, by President. And then, of course, it was approved by the governing board. But it explains that the college's vision, mission, purposes, values, and strategic plan provide a framework for the development and review of programs, all in the sake of improvement, of course. And they are broad enough to allow the flexibility needed to be appropriately responsive. I've seen strategic plans that are so detailed that you're stifled until you can, to do something until you can go on to something else. And so that's the purpose of this strategic plan. You may look at it and say, well, it doesn't really tell me what to do. But it's a framework and a guideline for what's most important, very broad, so that whatever you do, almost whatever you decide to do, can fit within this framework somewhere. But you just need to be able to show how it does. And I think with most improvement projects that you might want to do, you could find a way that they fit within this framework. If they can't, then we just won't do them. Simply let. And again, there's the statement this statement right here is very important because it shows how everything is linked. And I can guarantee you that the Higher Learning Commission is going to look at this policy probably in detail when they come, if they do it before they come. And that last statement is very important, that it shows that it will be used to align resources, to link budgets and planning, to assess student learning, to evaluate operations, and then produce synergy of effort. That is very important. Let's go on through this policy. You're all able to access this policy, of course, because on the Hive, you have access to the policy manual. But on the second page of this policy are our guidelines for, is it on the second page? Yes. It talks about the strategic plan. And then for the procedures and responsibilities, this is very important. The Higher Learning Commission wanted to know how often do you review your strategic plan? You know, is it current? Is it whatever? So we have put a process in place that says that it will normally be brought to the board for approval on a 10-year cycle. However, the board could call for a review at any time. And I think it said in this process when the last review was. Did it say?
2009.
What?
It's 2009.
Okay, yeah, it says right here that the current vision, mission, purposes was approved in 2006 and revised or revisited in 2009. So the 10-year cycle will be 2019, that we will be required, I would say, by policy to revisit, but it could be revisited at any time.
So you're
If
saying the 2016 is the
2009, because it was revisited and it was reaffirmed that we're okay where we are.
Okay, gotcha.
That's why we wanted to put that. It didn't change. It wasn't developed in 2016, but it was revisited at that time, even though it wasn't a 10-year cycle. Mainly, we didn't even have this process in place as to how often we would revisit it. So we feel very good about this policy. And how many of you even knew this policy was in our book? A few of you. Good. So if the Higher Learning Commission, the visitors ask you about your strategic plan and how often do you revisit it, or what is it, you would be able to answer that. We have a policy. It's and you can show them right where it is, or you could explain it. So, any questions on that? Okay, very good. Close. Okay. A very important planning process we have is our program review process. It's how we assess all of our programs. And this is the outline, I guess you'd say, for what is involved in all of our program reviews. For academic programs, we make sure that our programs are aligned with the mission statement. We look at our faculty and staff. How many of you have been involved in a program review? In developing, writing? A few of you. Okay, all right. I'm trying to see, Tim Lee, were you not involved in your maintenance program review?
A little bit.
A little bit, okay. And Diane, you were probably involved a little bit in the library program review. Computer Services does a program review. Were you guys involved at all? Okay, we might ask Tom about it next time. But you do have a program review as well. Campus security, we don't have a program review for you, do we? We've never done one. Maybe that's something that we need to include. I'm trying to see student life, Gary, they have several program reviews that they do. They do one for residence life, for the student activities, they do one for student discipline, they do one for admissions. And of course, all of the academic departments do a program review. And you can see what's involved in the academic program program portfolios, what's involved in the academic support portfolios, and of course that's your computer services, your financial aid, your fiscal control, counseling, library. Those are all of your academic support programs. And then just recently, very new, are our program portfolios for co-curricular programs. They are just being instituted. We've done the program review. In fact, that was one of our action projects that the institution was involved in. Came through the same process as we were reviewing information that we got from the Higher Learning Commission, from other areas. We needed a co-curricular review process. And so the President's Quality Council looked at it. Yes, that's very high priority. We assigned Dr. Sorensen to head that department or that action project, and it's gone through the whole process, and we are just getting ready to close it out. But the last thing was to develop an online process for reporting the review of these core curricular programs. And it's fitting right into the same process that we're doing our other program reviews. Really slick the way Computer Services has set that up for us. So those are all the programs that we are reviewing and assessing. Yes, Dana?
Well, I just want to say, I love doing our program reviews online. It's awesome. An improvement would be
Okay.
if we could get access to them in May to finish out the current year instead of waiting until August or September of the new year, when we're always looking forward, planning for new things, and then we have to kind of back ourselves up and say, well, okay, what were the things we did last year?
Okay.
So if we could close everything out like in May, and I know there's the waiting for the current one to close to be evaluated before it gets opened back up or something, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, there are a few programs that have not been appraised yet or evaluated. The goal is to have had those done already. I'm included in one of those that has not reviewed all of the programs that I need to review, mainly because I have about 15 of them, if not more. But I will get that done. Sharon, you have something to say?
Well, I think that I received an email maybe a couple months ago that they did open that up. I think that Dean Crockett heard those concerns, and so I think that it's always open now. So you might, over the last maybe month or so.
Oh, okay.
So
yes.
We just always wait for the word.
Okay.
Right. And so maybe we just need to communicate it.
Yeah, I think
So I'll talk with Dean.
Yeah, I remember hearing that concern, and I wasn't sure whether they had opened it or not.
Yeah.
So very good, thank you.
Well, we just sit there and it's like, did we think about that last year, or did we do that last year? What was the sequence of it?
Right, sometimes the years run together, don't they?
Yes, they do.
I know exactly what you mean.
If we can get in there and get it done now, that would be even better.
I'll follow up with them.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
What are you considering the co-curricular program?
The co-curricular programs are your athletics, your music programs. It's the programs that students are involved in that will enhance their regular school activities. Their school program going to EA. Some of it are your clubs, all of your clubs, your athletics, your fine arts clubs and activities. Anything else I'm missing? What?
The ASCAC activity.
Right, all your clubs,
Yeah.
all your clubs. That's what we're considering.
Like the Easter egg hunt.
Okay. And there is a really nice report that has been done for 2 years now. This is actually the third year that we have done this co-curricular review, but it will be the first year that it will be in the online system. There are 2 really nice reports out there that are probably on the Hive. Are they on the Hive yet, Gary?
I don't think so.
We need to get them on the Hive. Anyway, they're really nice, and we need to give everyone access to them, communicate that a little bit better. But that is a good question. Not everybody is aware of that. I think we've mentioned it in the communicator But if you're not involved, sometimes you don't understand the terminology or what is actually being communicated. That we're working on a co-curricular assessment activity. You know, what does that mean? And so, but now you know. If you know, spread it around. That's how we communicate. Okay, any questions on program portfolios? I think I wanted, I wanted to show you we do have a guide for our program portfolios. And this guides all of our review. This has not been updated to include the co-curricular. Maybe we need to update, hadn't even thought about that. But there is a purpose. We have our purpose for our program portfolios, the principles behind program portfolios, and then the program portfolio process. This is just a guide. It's not in policy book or anything in the policy manual, but maybe it's something we need to do. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe that's an improvement. Comment, question? Okay, that's the first page of it. This is the second page of this guide, which does go through the list of all of the instructional areas that we do have program portfolios for, all of the instructional support areas. And you can see there are a lot of program portfolios out there that are showing how each one of these programs are being successful or needing improvement, how they're going, just assess how they are right now. Do we have enough faculty? Do we have enough, are our facilities good? Are students learning? Do we have enough money? So we get a lot of information from our program portfolios, and of course our program portfolios are a source of improvement initiatives as well. And then the last page, the process for the whole review of our program portfolio is to show to our governing board that we do have this process in place. Now you saw all of the programs that were included there. It would be impossible to present those to the governing board every year. And so we do have a review cycle for presenting the reviews to the governing board. And this is the cycle this year. The science areas, communicative arts, counseling, athletics, the Gila County programs, and fiscal control program reviews will be presented to the governing board as to kind of a summary, an executive summary of how that program is doing and any strengths or areas of improvement for that particular program. Presented every year to the governing board, but not all of them every year, it's on a rotating cycle as to what's reported. How many of you knew about this? Just a few of you. So you're getting a lot of information today that you didn't know before. This is all part of our continuous improvement process. Yes?
You said this is not on the Hive? Is that correct?
This guide is not on the Hive, but it's in the R drive. In the R drive and I think a lot of people, any of the academic programs have access to this. It's in the R drive, this particular guide. But maybe it's something that we need to put out there that's more public, not public, but more easily accessible to everyone. One of the action projects that we're working on right now, we don't have a lot of time, do we? Anyway, we're working on a communications action project. And these are all things that we will consider. We are aware that there's a lot of information out there that goes back and forth that doesn't get to the end of the row. And we want to improve on that. So we're actually going to bring in a consultant to help us with our processes. Okay, any questions on that? Whoops, I just took that away and and go to the next slide. This is you, right?
This is me.
Okay.
So this is just sort of to take us back to that first slide when we talked about planning, and it's to bring home the fact that this is an integrated and systematic planning process for EAC. All of these 4 pieces work together to drive planning here at the college. You'll see at the center of this is the mission statement, and that just shows that the mission statement is the center of everything that we do here at EAC. As Provost Bryce mentioned, it's reviewed every 10 years. So the next scheduled review is 2019. Up at the top, you'll see our strategic plan. This is meant to sort of guide our major initiatives, whether they're coming through the program portfolio or through the budget. This is meant to guide those programs and those initiatives that we are working on putting in place. The strategic plan is a 5-year plan, and it is scheduled to be reevaluated, I believe, in 2018. Then at the bottom, you'll see our annual processes, which are our annual budget and our program portfolios. Our program portfolios are due September 31st of every year, which then gives those programs time to think about what they need to put in their budget. Then the program portfolios are meant to be included in the budget process. So if there are additional funding requests coming through the budget, the program portfolio is meant to be the supporting evidence for that need. So if there is a request for additional faculty members or additional facilities, there would need to be some sort of supporting evidence in the program portfolios showing that there's an increase in enrollment or something that is causing that requirement of an additional faculty member or additional facilities. So those 2 processes now talk to one another, where in the past they didn't. They were very separate processes, and you had to make requests in both areas. So now we changed the timing of the 2 processes, and we now have that requirement that the program portfolios must be included in the budget process. So that sort of ties in our entire presentation on continuous improvement and on our planning processes. So now we're gonna go through a brief activity, and Provost Bryce is gonna lead you through that.
Okay, you have a handout like this. I have my little handout. But let's assume that you're the center of the puzzle, and of course, you're not by yourself. You collaborate with a lot of different areas in the college, and through that collaboration, you can voice or work on areas of improvement, or even continuing what you're doing to show that we're all involved in this continuous improvement culture. I don't have these marked, but some of the, as if my puzzle works. Let's see. It was fun cutting these out, seeing if they worked. Okay, what might be one of the areas? I mean, there's so many areas that I'm involved in that I could probably make a really big puzzle. Because one of the main things is the President's Quality Council, of course. What is another thing that you know that I'm involved in? Anybody know?
Administrative faculty, is that what's called administrative faculty meeting?
Right, okay. The administration faculty committee that we meet once a month, share a lot of information. I get to see all of the faculty and some administration every month. Professional support staff. We started last spring, didn't we, last fall, having a professional support staff meeting, like an orientation. Did you have one in the spring, or we just had one in the fall? Okay, we're going to continue to do that. We got a lot of feedback that said that was very helpful. We've already planned a lot of things that we want to share with you in the fall. Lots of things. So that would, whoops, that doesn't go there. That goes right here. Anyway, there are so many things. One of the things that I really am involved in is planning and steering, and that's the curriculum development. All of the divisions sit on that committee. I'm even involved in campus security. I get all the discipline reports that come from campus security. So there are many things, some things that happen that may even include expulsion of a student and things like that, and those expulsion letters come from me. Of course, I don't make that decision myself to expel them. They come from the president or from executive vice president, but I'm still involved in that. I'm involved in all of student life. So just very quickly, just mark down on your piece, what areas in the college do you collaborate with that you can share information, you can share ideas for improvement, you can help with other ideas of improvement, or maybe even put down some things that you would like to be involved in. What piece? Maybe there's a puzzle piece that you would like to collaborate more on. Write that down. Just get you thinking about I'm not just this little puzzle piece in the middle that don't have any connections to anybody or anything, any department, because I can guarantee you that probably every one of you could fill out that puzzle right now. You could have at least 8 areas of collaboration right now that make a difference in the institution if that collaboration is strong and healthy. So has this been valuable for you today, learning the different processes that are in place that some of you may not even been aware of? And just today we've learned some things that we need to do to improve our communication and so on. So very good. Thank you for attending, and our hour is up. Shannon, would you like to say any final?
No, I think we've got it all covered.
Okay.
So thank you for attending.
Thanks.